Hello and welcome to our office hours presentation today. This is Paul Hoyt, your host. Our office hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do almost every Monday at noon Pacific time. All these recording slides and exercises are archived in the members area of our website, and all the recordings are currently available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reason we do these is because we know that being a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but we also know that it's tough. You really do need education, training, tools, and team in order to be successful, and we want you to get to know us, because when you get to know us, you'll know that first and most importantly, we care about you. We really want you to be successful in every area of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity that's within you, and then remember it, embrace it, and try to live it every day as we do. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America, and our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth while enjoying greater harmony and balance in their lives. If you find these office hours presentations beneficial to you, please share them with other CEOs, entrepreneurs, small business owners, or people who want to be a small business owner as you can, because there is an absolute ton of valuable information available on the website, and we'd love to share it out there because we really want to do our part to help businesses in America be more successful. Our office hours agenda is usually an in-depth discussion of a business success principle. Then I offer some closing remarks, special offers, and an invitation for future sessions, and then we go into open Q&A and coaching. Today is a bit of an exception. 1 out of every 4 or 5 office hours I do is strictly Q&A, and that's what we're going to do today. In between the office hours, I encourage you to join us in the Awaken CEO communities on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where we offer a business success principle of the day about 4 days a week. And every morning when I get up, I post the energy of the day posting to Facebook. I think today was number 925 in a row. It's quite a discipline for me, and I strongly encourage everybody to have something that they do every single day. Hopefully something that brings a little joy into their lives, that puts a little positive energy into their life. And that's what Energy of the Day has done for me, and I strongly recommend that kind of daily discipline and focus to everybody because it will make a difference in your life. Today's topic for our office hours presentation, as I mentioned, is just open Q&A and group coaching. In the open Q&A and group coaching, we invite you to ask questions in any one of these key performance areas. I usually relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of success that I defined in my 2004 book, The Foundation Factor. And this one's all about anything that you want to ask questions about. So you are welcome to ask questions about marketing, financial management, sales, customer service, leadership, operations, anything at all about your business, and I'll do my very best I can to support you. We also oftentimes relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the levels of performance that we defined in the Awaken CEO system, where we talk about how important it is to you to focus on your mindset, your methods, and your momentum. And of course, you're welcome to ask questions in any one of those areas as well. It's really important for you to get your attitude and your perspective straight, which is your mindset, and develop plans and processes and procedures, which is your methods, and then get into action, repeated action over time that will help you build momentum up for your business. I want to take just a few minutes and review the previous office hours presentations that we have had in between the last group coaching session and today. So maybe it'll give you some ideas for some of the questions or discussion topics that you'd like to address. Office Hours 119 was on conscious business leadership. Office Hours 120 was on marketing warfare. And Office Hours 121 was on financial modeling. I'll take a look at the agenda for each one of those real quickly. 119 on conscious business leadership, we first started talking about what is this thing called consciousness and enlightenment? What does it mean to have a higher vibration? And we talked a little bit about what that has meant to me and how other great folks have described that experience for themselves too. We talked about a great book written by John Montgomery called Great from the Start, and we talked about conscious capitalism principles, the triple bottom line and even the quadruple bottom line, why sometimes conscious business leadership doesn't work and when it really does work as well. I want to review just a couple of the really great principles from that. First of all, from consciouscapitalism.org, they really focus a stress on fourfold different aspects of being a conscious business or conscious capitalism, on finding your purpose, of really understanding your why in business, and then focusing what you do, everything that you do, on managing and maintaining that purpose and making that purpose become a reality. They focused on understanding who your stakeholders are, not just your shareholders at the company, but the employees of your company, the contractors of your company, the investors in your company. You know, everybody that has anything to do with your company is in fact a shareholder of your company. And that includes your community as well. They encourage focus on the culture that you established, and that means identifying your true values and being in integrity with those values in everything that you do. And then exercising great leadership, because it's your responsibility as the CEO of your business, as the leader of your business, to set the tone for the rest of your business. It's your responsibility to define your values and your vision for the business and to communicate that in such a way to where you rally the entire team. We also talked about the differences in between a business that's purely focused on profits and a business that is focused on doing good or taking their part in a social cause, in doing their part to help make sure that this planet is a great planet for our children and our children's children. This then from enlightenedbusinesssummit.com. If for companies that are just focused on profits, it's business as usual. But for companies that are really focused on being a conscious company, they see business as a force for good, as a way for people to come together and work together, as a way for people to learn from each other and to help each other achieve their goals and dreams. With a normal business, they might see it being a very competitive environment, but conscious businesses focus on cooperation. Competitive, profit-only focused business are focused on manipulation. Conscious business are focused on integrity. A competitive business might be secret about what they're doing and the shenanigans that go on in the boardroom. Conscious businesses try to be as transparent as possible as they can. That doesn't mean absolute complete transparency, by the way, because there are some rules and restrictions about what you can talk about because of the privacy laws, that are afforded to your employees and your contractors, etc. Unconscious businesses are focused on profits at any cost, and they have a real short-term perspective, and they typically have limited thinking. Conscious businesses are focused on making profit, but it's profit within the principles that they have established. They have visionary leadership, and they take a very global perspective. And of course, I am a champion for conscious capitalism, especially with the Awakened CEO system. The Awakened CEO system is about the responsibility and the opportunity that CEOs have to not just build a successful, strong, scalable business, but to be the best person that they can be, to fulfill their own potential and live up to their own potential and encourage and support everybody that they work with in doing the same. In the very next week, we changed directions about 180 degrees, and we talked about marketing warfare. I just talked about how important it is for you to be cooperative and collaborative as opposed to purely competitive. And in the very next office hours presentation, we talked about marketing warfare. We talked about why study warfare. We talked about a great book called The Art of War. We talked about a lot of other strategies and spent a fair time talking about guerrilla marketing and how you can do marketing mistakes. So, why did we do that? Why do we study warfare while we're talking about conscious principles in that? And that is because I think it's really good to look at your business as a game that you are playing. And the way that we keep score in this game is by the revenues and profits that we have and the ways that we support other people. And if we're looking to be the very best game players that we can be, it's a really good idea to study warfare tactics. Why? Because everything's on the line when it comes to warfare. Everything's on the line. And if you want to learn the most about really effective strategies that you can employ in your business in a very positive and lighthearted kind of way, then I strongly encourage you to study the art of warfare and marketing warfare in general. Some of that topics that we talk about, here are the 5 F's from The Art of War by Sun Tzu. He talked about the importance of knowing which ones of these 5 strategies were right for your business to employ right now. A frontal approach means that you're going to take the market head on, and he says, and I strongly recommend, it really requires a significant competitive advantage. He recommends at least a 3-to-1 advantage before you go take on everybody else head on. You could have a fortress approach, which says that we're going to create a little fortress around our particular market segment and defend that at all costs. So we may be the best chiropractor in San Jose, California, or we may be the best franchise consulting firm in Denver, Colorado, and decide that that is going to be your territory and you're going to build a fortress around that and secure that as your most primary market position. You can take a flanking strategy, which means that you attack your competitors not head on, but from the sides, and oftentimes in ways that they don't expect. A fragmenting strategy says that we are going to gain market share by attacking one little subsection of the market at a time. We're going to establish a beachhead, we're going to build a fortress approach there, and we're going to move on to the next market segment, etc. And the last of the 5 F's was the feign approach, which means that we pretend to be something that we are not. If we're strong, we pretend to be weak. If we are weak, we pretend to be strong, so that our competitors will develop and execute tactics that are simply not effective against us because they do not perceive us in the way that we truly are. They perceive us in the way that we want them to perceive us. We also talked about guerrilla marketing, which is a great book by J. Conrad Levinson, produced a long time ago in 1984, where he talks about the wisdom of having small, creative, unconventional attacks against very large competitors, which are low-cost or no-cost attacks. And he stresses that in order to be most effective, you want them to be funny, unique, outrageous, clever, and to get attention and get people talking. And they want them to be excited, unexpected, and memorable. This is kind of related to the flanking strategy that Sun Tzu talked about, but it's much different than that. You know, guerrilla marketing, guerrilla warfare is more like the Indian warfare that we had, you know, in the days when we unfortunately were doing battle with American Indians, and in the Revolutionary War, where the settlers and the people who were on the eventually United States side of the Revolution, employing those same kinds of tactics. In the next office hours presentation, we talked about financial modeling, which is one of my very, very favorite things to do. We talked about when and where and the value of financial modeling. We did a step-by-step through the process, and then we offered some tips on doing financial modeling yourself. We talked about specifically the process of projections that I use whenever I help people create financial models, and I've done, you know, 120, 150 of them or so. I've lost count, but you know, roughly about one a month for the last 15 years, which would be about 180. So maybe somewhat shorter than that, but a lot of different ones. And I have a process that works extremely well for me and my clients, and this is this 8-step process that we go through. We talk about startup expenses, then sales projections. We go into the staffing model, then talk about direct costs. Then we cover all of the operating expenses: automobile, insurance, marketing, rent, office supplies, office equipment, postage. There's a long list of about 30 of them that we talk about. And we talk about balance sheet activity, fixed asset spending, the impact of accounts receivable and accounts payable, notes receivable, all your financing activities on your company itself and the way it consumes cash flow. Then we do a cash flow analysis and go into capital engineering. So that's the process that I use whenever I do financial projections. If you haven't done financial projections for your company in some period of time, say a year or so, then I strongly recommend that you think about that again, because it's a really great way to inspire you to take additional goals, to really set your bar maybe a little higher than you would have otherwise, and then see what the impact is on your financial future based upon the goals that you set. So I'm a big fan of budgets, a big fan of financial engineering and financial modeling. And of course, if there's any way that we can support you in that, we'd love to do so. So those were the 3 big previous office hours. Maybe that stimulated a discussion topic for you. or a question for you, and we'd love to hear about that. Office Hours 119 was on conscious business leadership, 120 was on marketing warfare, and 121 was on financial modeling. And of course, you are encouraged to ask questions from any of the previous 118 office hour sessions that we did as well. And with that, let's jump into open Q&A, where you're welcome to ask questions and deliver comments on any topic that you want. And if you'd like to suggest topics for future office hours presentations, we encourage you to go to paulsurvey.com and fill it out, where we'll check that out, and maybe we'll develop a presentation that's exactly around what you want to hear about. So with that, question, Stephanie, I know we got a couple of questions coming in from emails before today's session. Do we have any from the attendees on the call, or shall we go to some of those email questions we had?
Yep, here's one right here coming in. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I need a new bookkeeping system. What are the steps that I need to take, and how do I get started?
Well, congratulations on thinking that you need a new bookkeeping system. One of the things that I do for some of my clients is act as a part-time CFO, and I've got some really great bookkeepers that work for me. So I've got an opportunity to answer this very question for people every couple of months or so. When you get it, the most important things about a new bookkeeping system is the separation in between your personal expenses and your business expenses. So the first quick sanity check is, do you have a business bank account? Have you established your business, first of all? Do you have a corporation, a subchapter S? Do you have an LLC? Or are you operating as a sole proprietorship? Any of those work, but we strongly recommend that you at least have an LLC because of the liability protection that it offers and because of the message that it sends to the IRS that you really intend to separate out personal expenses and business expenses. So we strongly recommend at least that you form the company and then get a company bank account. And oftentimes that requires that you form the company with the state, that you get a certificate of good standing so that you can open up the bank account in your state. And some states, by the way, you have to jump through a lot more hoops than you do other states. I know back in Colorado, you could file an LLC online for $50, get your EIN, go right down to the bank and open up a bank account with a deposit of, $100 or $500. In Florida, it's a lot different. In Florida, you have to jump through a lot more hoops to do that. So I don't know what it is in your particular state, but those are the necessary steps to get started. And then you want to pick a good accounting system by which you can keep track of things. We use and strongly recommend QuickBooks, which is no stranger. I mean, it has like an 80% market share for companies that are smaller companies. There may be a point in time that you will outgrow QuickBooks. I actually want you to outgrow QuickBooks. It doesn't work that well, I believe, for companies that have 10, 15, $20 million in revenue. There are some other very sophisticated software packages that will work well when you get to be large. But if you're a small business, you've got 4 or 5 or 10 employees, you've got revenues less than $10 million, QuickBooks might be the solution for you. And that's the one that we primarily work with our clients. Then after you decide which accounting system you want to use, you need to decide which version of that accounting system to use. For example, QuickBooks, some people decide that they're going to use QuickBooks on their own local laptop and server. Other companies want to use QuickBooks Online. That's exactly the right choice for them. And then still other companies may want to have a hosted QuickBooks solution that can be accessed online from anywhere. There's some slight differences in the features and functionality in between QuickBooks Online and a hosted QuickBooks solution. So you kind of got to analyze which one is right for you. And in some cases, we actually have one client where the absolute right thing for them was for them to host QuickBooks on one of their local servers because of the other software packages that they had purchased that needed to integrate into QuickBooks. And they allow us access to that machine through facilities like TeamViewer or GoToMyPC. So that's the next step in the process. Once you have determined how you're going to install it, then we get it installed, and then we bring it up to speed with your current bank accounts by typically going to your bank accounts, downloading all the information, and properly classifying every transaction that happens into the right account and getting it squared away with your balance sheet activities so that you can have an effective starting point for getting started on QuickBooks. You may be talented on bookkeeping, and if you are, then I strongly encourage you to take a QuickBooks class so that you can learn the ins and outs of that. I don't recommend that you set up QuickBooks for yourself for the first time. Get a QuickBooks Pro advisor to help make the choices that you have to make at the very start of implementing QuickBooks, so you select the right chart of accounts, and so you select all of the right options and get it set up that's right for your business, because there are many different types, at least 5 different types of QuickBooks standard chart of accounts, and you want to pick the one that's just right for you because it will pay dividends down the road. So that's how you get started. If there's anything that we can do to help you get started in that process, by all means, raise your hand, send us an email, and we're happy to have a conversation with you about how you do that. And again, my hat's off to you, because I think accounting is in my blood. I love numbers and organizations. I love balancing things out. I love the elegance of the double entry accounting system. So accounting and proper bookkeeping is near and dear to my heart. Hopefully that was helpful to you. We'd be happy to answer any other questions or entertain any other discussion on that from any of the other attendees as well. Stephanie, what's next?
From one of our attendees right now is asking, how often should you update your business plan, especially the financial modeling section?
I'll take that from 2 different perspectives. So the business plan, and I want to differentiate here, because sometimes when people say I need business plans or what they really need is business planning. So business planning to me is developing the go-forward strategy and translating that into 90-day plans, which I'm a huge fan of. And in that particular case, I strongly recommend that at least every 90 days you revisit your long-term growth strategies and your 90-day growth plans so that you can communicate that with everybody and make sure everybody's on the right page. So that's kind of answering that question from the perspective of business planning. If you're talking about the business plan itself, which to me is that 30 to 50 page document that you give to potential team members, potential partners, to potential investors, to communicate as thoroughly as you can, what you intend to create with your business to get them to participate in the way that you want them to participate, that's a slightly different story. So at least every 90 days, you have to update that with your financial history at least. So you have an obligation, if you're raising capital, if you are encouraging people to join your business in some way, to make sure that the information that you supply to them is accurate and up to date. So at least every 90 days, if you're raising capital, you have to update the financial history section of your business plan so that you're accurately giving them a proper balance sheet and a year-to-date P&L, so that you are fairly disclosing to them the current financial status of the business. And typically you take that opportunity to update the business plan too, with changes in direction that may have come up, new opportunities, new partners, new team members especially. So at least every 90 days. But you do have a legal obligation to fairly communicate the status of your business. So if something material happens in your business, such as an executive comes or goes, or a partner comes or goes, or you have an extreme opportunity that has come your way that you've been able to take advantage of, or you had an opportunity, a client that you were relying on to say that, we're real proud that we had ABC Company as one of our clients, but that went away for some reason, you have an obligation to update the business plan at that point in time, so that the very next person you hand that business plan to is getting the accurate information. So those are the 2 answers when it comes to a business plan. You have an obligation, a legal obligation, to update it at least every 90 days, but you also have an obligation to update it whenever something material happens to the business. Some significant change in your team, some significant change in your directions, some significant change in your status, then you need to update the business plan for that as well. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, whenever I deliver business plans for clients, I always deliver the Word document and the Excel spreadsheet that goes along with the financial model, because I want you to be able to make those updates yourself. I'd love to help you, of course, but I'm an expensive fellow. So if you can make, a 10-minute change by yourself and republish them, by all means, I want you to do that, because that saves your money and helps you be more successful in the long run. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Stephanie, any comments yourself, or another comment or question?
Let's just keep moving. We've got a lot of questions here, so we're
Awesome.
going to have to watch. We're going to have to watch my feedback.
Okay. Awesome.
How do you gauge how big of a space that you need for office for operations? I'm guessing. I had a pro forma done a few years ago, and it said 333 square feet per full-time employee. What else should we take into consideration?
That's an awesome question. In fact, I had a client ask me that question just last week. So, and it probably wasn't you, because I don't see them on the call right now. So, general rule of thumb is, the one that I've always used is around 150 square feet per employee. If you take a look at someone's cubicle or office or actual working environment, it might only be 8 by 8. If they've got a separate office, it might be 8 by 10. So you say, how does that translate into 150 square feet per employee? And the answer is that the 150 square feet, when you have, I would say, 10 or 15 people in the office, covers the hallways, the restrooms, the break rooms, the reception area, the conference rooms, etc., that all gets rolled into that 150 square feet. So for an office that has 10 employees in it, you might have a 1,500 square feet office. I actually think that might be a little big for a office that had 10 employees, but maybe not. Maybe you've got, especially if everybody has their own office, which is rare these days, you might have a bullpen area that's 20 by 20 that you got 4 or 5 people in, a couple of offices, a conference room, a reception area, a small little reception area. So you can get up to, that 1,200 to 1,500 square feet pretty darn quickly. I think the 330 square feet per employee would be really a spacious office place. I haven't used that one before, but use your own best judgment. If you need to have multiple conference rooms or a training room, for example, you can have a training room that's 30 by 50 feet pretty darn quick, and that's 1,500 square feet in itself. So you can have a lot of variation into that. Again, the rule of thumb that I've always used before is around 150 square feet per employee, but there's a lot of variation in that. If you just had a big bullpen area with no real conference room and no real offices, it would be considerably less. If you needed to have a training facility and maybe a couple of conference rooms, because of the nature of the work that you do, it could be more than that. So yeah, use your best judgment. But again, 330 square feet, that sounds very high to me. Hopefully that helped. Next question.
This is from Craig, who's on the call live that you can chat with. What is your advice for internal decisions in a startup company to pick the right investor as opposed to just taking the money they're offering?
That's a really great question, and I'm going to give an answer, then I'm going to take you off mute and let you see whether or not you want to add to that or add further discussion. So generally speaking, if people who are desperate have a tendency to take money from anybody, and sometimes honestly that might really seem like the best decision for you. Oftentimes I've seen a lot of companies, unfortunately, be in that unfortunate position of being desperate to keep the doors open. And when you're desperate to keep the doors open, sometimes the deal that you would normally turn down is the best deal that's in front of you, and you take it and you do everything you can to make it work. If you're not in a desperation mode, then I strongly encourage you to listen to your own intuition and to listen to your own inner guidance about whether or not any deal, whether it be with a customer or an investor or a vendor, is the right deal for you in that time. Take a few minutes and get yourself grounded and centered and balanced, get your mind as quiet as you can get it, and ask yourself from a real quiet perspective, is this the right deal for me right now? And follow that guidance. I'm a big fan of that quiet voice within that helps me make great decisions and can help you make a great decision too. Another approach to that is to create a little bit of a checklist. I'm a big fan of checklists. In fact, you can almost be guaranteed that if you ask me any question, it's going to have something to do with a checklist. And in this case, it does. So I make a checklist of what your ideal investor looks like. What kind of attitude do they have about the business? Have they invested in other people before? How much money do they have? Have you worked with them before? Anything and everything that you can figure out about your ideal investor, and then take this particular investor or business partner and rate them according to the checklist that you have created. And if you find them to be, 75 or 80% close to your ideal, then absolutely go for it. If you find them to only, be checked off on one or two of the boxes, if the only box is they got money and they want to give it to me, then, if they're really lousy in every other way that you could possibly imagine, like easy to get along with, local, have contacts to other investors, have done this before, are not part of my family, all of those different areas in which you might rate somebody, then really question that. So develop your own little rating system if you want. Listen to your own inner guidance, and don't take the money from somebody that's really causing your antenna to buzz, unless you just absolutely have to keep the doors open. And if you find yourself in that unfortunate position, then go for it and do everything you can to make it work as well as you possibly can. Craig, I'm going to take you off of mute real quick and see if that was helpful to you, and invite you to offer a comment of your own or a follow-up question if you like. Go ahead.
Well, a little bit of both. I definitely agree with everything you just said. My question was more into managing expectations and managing the decisions internally, because you have many stakeholders and influential people, and it needs to be a very tied-in hug decision. In other words, everyone needs to be very comfortable with it, but it is a management process.
Yeah, it is. And in general, I'm going to leave you off of mute here for a little bit. In general, the whole art and science of making decisions internally is something that really depends on that culture. So we want to have, as often as possible, we want to have consensus. As often as possible, we'd like for it to be a democratic process, because when people feel like that they've participated in the decision-making process, and especially if they agree with the decision that's been made, it can add to teamwork and morale. So I'm a big fan of that. But I also recognize that sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes you got 4 votes in one direction and 1 vote in another direction. Sometimes the decision needs to be made right now, today, and you can't wait to socialize the questions and socialize the discussion and ask for everybody's input, or especially you don't have the time to resolve any conflicts that people have. So in those cases, you need to make sure that you got one person in charge of that, and everybody recognizes that that's their role and their responsibility. The role of a CEO and a leader is to share the decision-making responsibilities and opportunities with everybody that they can, to get their ideas and their cooperation and collaboration as much as possible, and then to make a decision based upon that feedback, whether or not it be the decision that everybody at the company would go along with. And then, by the way, it's the responsibility of everybody who is at that company to honor that process. And if the boss says this is the way we need to do it, then I trust the boss, I respect the boss, I honor their responsibility and the toughness of the job that they have to make that decision without all of the information from everybody, without the consensus of the team, and I respect that enough to do everything I possibly can to make that decision be successful. And to people who are on your team, and if you're on one of those teams, and if you can't honor the boss's decision and get behind that 100%, and get behind the boss and get behind the decision that it's time for you to go find a job elsewhere. Because that's your primary responsibility whenever you work with anybody and for anybody, is to make the team successful. And to make the team successful, if it's time for you to sit on the bench, it's time for you to sit on the bench. If it's time for you to support the decision that wouldn't have been your first choice, then support it. And if the CEO or the leader happens to make a decision that's absolutely 100% the way that you would have made it, then you can go for it with a lot more ease and grace, but you still need to support the decision. That makes sense to you, Craig? Was that helpful?
It was, and it's funny, I hear a lot of different things, and listening to what you just said, I was taking some notes, and caught myself making a checklist. You almost have to create a checklist of parameters around the decision of whatever you're looking at. Once those parameters are set, you can take the emotion out of it and create a decision process. So that's kind of what I've just wrote down.
That's awesome. One other quick thought that came up as you were sharing that, there's some decisions that can be made publicly and some that cannot. An example of a public decision might be where are we going to have our July 4th company picnic? Please give me your ideas, put them in the suggestion box, and we'll take a look at all the votes and analyze the costs, and we'll make a good decision. That can be a very public decision. A decision about whether or not to get a new vice president of sales, about whether or not the guy or the gal that's in that job is doing their job effectively, and whether or not you have confidence that they're going to be able to do that job, in the year to come. That's not a decision that you say, hey, what does everybody think about Joe, our vice president of sales? Should we keep him or not? That's got to be done in private, and the CEO of the company has to decide who's going to be on the team and who's going to be involved in that discussion and in that decision-making process. And there's a couple of good examples about how some decisions at a company can be made democratically and publicly, and other ones need to be made very cautiously and in private, because you don't want, it's just the right thing to do. It's the right way to treat people, and in some cases it's the legal way to treat people as well. So hopefully that was helpful. Greg, I'm going to put you back on mute, and we're going to move on to the next question. Thank you so much for that question and for your comments. I really do appreciate it. Next one, Stephanie.
Next question.
Yep.
Sorry, having a little bit of computer problems. Let's one on CRM programs. While there are numerous programs available, what program do you recommend and process for establishing the setup when there are 4 or more individuals potentially interacting with the program?
Wow, that's a good one. So I've used a fair number of CRM systems in the past. When I worked for very large companies like EDS and Oracle, and really, really huge companies in the past, they all had their customer relationship management systems. Sometimes that's integrated with the SAP application or the Oracle application or Salesforce.com, etc. But I think that we're talking about a much smaller scale here. So in the smaller scale, I've worked with Aweber and MailChimp and Constant Contact and One Shopping Cart and Infusionsoft. So right now I use Infusionsoft because I have aspirations of having many, many, many thousands more people on my mailing list. Right now my mailing list is about 5,000 people or so. But I have aspirations of that being 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. So I wanted to go with the product that has the dominant market position for companies that do marketing to large lists, and that's Infusionsoft. So that's kind of the one that we are experts in here at our company, and the one that we use internally. Before that, we used some other ones quite to our quite to our benefit as well. We used Constant Contact for a while in the early days of my business. I used a product called Swift Page early in my business. I used One Shopping Cart for a while, and all of those have grown up beyond the capabilities that they had when I was using them early in the life of my business. But I still made the choice to go to Infusionsoft about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and haven't regretted that choice. So if you are having multiple people that need to be on that CRM system, then it could be that some of those choices that I had, like Constant Contact and other ones, are not the right choice because they're really designed more for a single user. Infusionsoft is by its nature designed for large people or large companies to interact with it. Multiple users all at the same time. I think with the initial Infusionsoft license you get up to 5 users who can sign on into the system and be using that. It's designed for salespeople to communicate with each other, where when a new lead comes in, it's tagged as a new lead, it's assigned to a sales rep, either in a sequential way or a random way, or you can assign the sales rep. That sales rep is supposed to put all of their messages into Infusionsoft so that they're shared with other people and not just in some Word document on their laptop somewhere, etc. So that's a really good choice whenever you have a lot of people that need to interact with your CRM system. It's the one that we use too. And I'm going to ask and invite Stephanie to make a comment about that. She's our resident Infusionsoft expert and has personal first-hand experience with several other different platforms as well. Stephanie, what's your thoughts?
No, I think that there's a whole bunch of different factors, Kyle, when you're, or Michael, I'm sorry, when you're looking for a CRM. I think that your industry, some industries now have their, some CRMs actually have special apps and different pieces that are customized for various industries. I think that the learning curve is another big one, depending on the ability and the time frame and of the techiness of your
That's good.
staff and team members that are going to be actually using the software. You need to take a good look at that as well. And also, so many of these highly sophisticated software programs are now trying to combine sales and marketing together. And so when they do that, some of the bells and whistles make more sense to some companies than do others. Does that make sense, Paul?
It did, and you made a really great point about the technical sophistication and capabilities of your staff. For example, Infusionsoft, while it is the Cadillac of the industry, it does take a lot of training and education. There's a significant learning curve with that. You really have to get an Infusionsoft consultant on your team to help you get it set up correctly. And the real cost of Infusionsoft doesn't have anything to do with the installation charges or the couple of $100 a month, maybe $250, maybe $300 that you're paying each month to Infusionsoft. The cost of Infusionsoft is in the time that you spend with it, is the investment that you make every month in developing campaigns and developing templates and in developing the way in which you use that system. And I think it's true with Infusionsoft as it is with other ones, is once you make a choice and invest heavily in that, which, by the way, like over the last 3 years or so with my Infusionsoft, I've probably invested $35,000 at least in fees to Infusionsoft and monthly fees to them, but most of that has gone to the staff that we've been hiring and the consultants that we've hired to help us implement and use it effectively. So that's where the true cost comes in, is in the training and the education and the ongoing costs from your staff members in interacting with the CRM system to help it pay off for you in the ways that we want it to pay off. I'm going to take just a second and do a little bit of a little housekeeping here. I normally do this about halfway through the presentation, but I got carried away on some of the answers. Here at the Hoyt Management Group, you'll find that our distinctions are that we're focused on the whole person. You know, we want to make sure that you get the support that you need and can use and can afford, and we're focused not only on helping you build a profitable, strong, scalable business, but we're here to help you be the best person that you can be and to enjoy life, to have the best life experience that you can possibly have as well. Our support services include both planning, execution, with a heavy emphasis on the execution, because as proud as I am about the plans that we help people create, we know that that's only a small part of your success. I like to say that having your vision and your status and your resources gathered together and your plan in place is about 3, 4, 5% of your success. Your real success depends on your ability to focus and your ability to get the job done every single day, to improvise, to adapt, to overcome, to solve the problems that you have, to face the challenges that are in your way, to overcome the obstacles, to maintain your focus and commitment to the goals that you have in front of you. And we're as eager to help you execute the plans that we help you put into place as we are in helping you create those plans in the first place. Our next office hours will be a week from today on June the 13th. The topic is to be determined. I think it's going to be on cybersecurity because I've had some really good input in working with clients on that area in the last couple of weeks or so. So I think that's what it's going to be. I'm not committed to that, but it's going to be fascinating if we do cybersecurity next week. And as always, let me know what topics that you'd like for me to address by going to paulsurvey.com. And with that, let's go back into the Q&A. What do you got, Steph?
Let's see. What are your recommendations? What are your recommendations for helping us get our sales revenues? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Can you help us get our sales revenues and activities as a team back to where they should be?
The answer is yes. We'll be happy to talk to you about doing that. And sales is always an interesting challenge. Sales to me is, it's where business really starts. I always talk about the 3 of the 7 key performance areas that are the most important. Now, with leadership being number 1, sales being number 2, and delivery being number 3. And the reason I say that is because as a leader, you have a responsibility to create a viable, profitable, and perhaps scalable business model. If your business model isn't profitable, if you can't make money on the deals that you are selling, then it doesn't make any difference how much you sell. In fact, the more you sell, the more in debt that you might go or underwater you might go. So you got to have a chance of being profitable, and that's a function of leadership. And then it really comes to selling. You have to be able to sell things so that you have the opportunity to deliver them. If you just focus on delivery, no matter how good you are at what you do, you're never going to build a business if you can't sell. And you have to be able to sell in order to keep your business doors open. So if you're having challenges in selling, it could be a wide variety of different things. It could be the activity levels, just like you mentioned, that people aren't making the calls that they need to make. They're not generating the leads that they need to that you need to generate, etc. And I always recommend that if people are not developing, well, let me take this the other way. If you have a salesperson who's doing an awesome job for you and they're meeting their quota expectations and they're doing everything right, you as a manager, your job is just to keep them going. To pat them on the back, to buy them beer, to buy them pizza, to say attaboy, attagirl, and keep them going in that direction. If they're not making that quota, but they're developing a strong pipeline, and they have a lot of people in their pipeline, but they're just not able to close the deals, then we focus on helping them close the deals. We help them with the customer engagement process in making sure that they're developing trust and rapport with their clients, making sure that they're accurately determining the needs of the clients and presenting an opportunity for that client to move forward, and that they're using an effective sales process in order to take a client from being a lead into somebody that's in a position to say yes. And we focus on helping them ask for the order in a way that really works for them. So we help them with that sales process and the conversion process if they have the leads in front of them. If you don't have the leads in front of them, then the answer is the lead generation process. And that's just typically a combination of responsibilities between marketing and sales. So it's the responsibility of the marketing department to build brand awareness, to develop great products and services, to develop good alliances and partnerships, and to develop great lead generation channels. So it could be that it's a function of marketing, or it could be that it's a function of sales. We're happy to come in and help you analyze what you are doing today in the area of lead generation and what you're doing in the day right now today to move those leads into being prospects and into where they're ready to be closed, and what you're doing today in order to close the deals, handle the objections, ask for the order, etc., to help improve your sales results. But if I could summarize that up, as being effective in sales is you got to get about 5 or 6 things that are working well together with each other. Your marketing and branding and brand awareness, your lead generation strategies, your ability to develop trust and rapport with your clients, your ability to move those clients from being suspects into being prospects, your ability to ask for the order, your ability to handle objections, etc. All of those things need to go well in order for you to get the revenues that you want in your sales process. And again, we pride ourselves in being able to have those discussions with you and help you figure out which ones of those steps in your process could be changed to help you develop sales scripts, to help you develop lead generation tactics, to help you develop ways in which you can ask for the order, etc. So we'd be honored and blessed to have a conversation with you with regards to that. Stephanie, any comments or questions there?
I want to get one more question into you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm confused about crowdfunding and whether to use Kickstarter or Indiegogo to raise capital. Can you help me?
That's a great question. I did an office hours on crowdfunding about a year ago. I think it was about a year ago, and I'm getting ready to do one again here in the next few weeks. It's been my privilege to work with a company that is in the process of developing their application with FINRA to become a new Title III equity crowdfunding portal. So I am way up to speed on all the different crowdfunding. One of the important things is that there are many different approaches to crowdfunding. There's the donation-based crowdfunding that just says, give to my cause, and GoFundMe is my favorite one for doing that, although you can just have a donation-based crowdfunding offering on Indiegogo. You can have a rewards-based or perk-based crowdfunding, which says, give me money and I'll give you something in return. Maybe it's a t-shirt, maybe it's a day worth of my services, maybe you get to be first in line for the next automobile, whatever it happens to be. That's called rewards-based or perk-based crowdfunding. And then there's the third base of crowdfunding, which is equity-based crowdfunding. You mentioned Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Kickstarter doesn't do donation-based crowdfunding, and they don't do equity-based crowdfunding. They only do rewards or perk-based crowdfunding, and then there's always kind of a min-max offering. So if you don't meet your threshold with Kickstarter, you don't get any money at all. Indiegogo is a little bit different. They have different approaches for working with you. Some of it's based on threshold and some of it's not based on threshold. They also do donation-based crowdfunding in addition to rewards or perk-based crowdfunding. And they have said that they were going to do equity-based crowdfunding, but so far I haven't seen them do that. And when it comes to equity-based crowdfunding, there's 2 different types of that as well. One of them is what they call 506C, equity crowdfunding for accredited investors only. And the other one is the new Title III crowdfunding, for which you can raise capital from non-accredited investors. So there's 2 types of equity crowdfunding available in addition to the public offerings that are available with intrastate offerings or the new Reg A and Reg A Plus offerings. Well, Reg A isn't new, but Reg A Plus is new. So there are public offerings that you can have too. So I guess that's a fairly complicated question. Generally, as far as I know right now with Kickstarter and Indiegogo, you cannot use either one of those platforms for equity-based crowdfunding. And if you choose to do equity-based crowdfunding, you have at least two options available for you: a 506c for accredited investors only, and the new Title III crowdfunding, which allows you to raise capital from both non-accredited and accredited investors. Hopefully that was helpful to you, but I think it's more important for us to really have a discussion about the whole process of raising capital, about what do you want to fund, how much money do you need, how do you determine how much money you need, because it's really a decision based upon how much money that you need, how much money that you have, how much money your available network has, like family and friends have, before you make a decision as to which one of the 9 different ways that you can raise equity capital is just right for you in your business, and whether that be a private offering or whether that be a crowdfunding / public offering. So it is a complex subject. We're happy to have conversations with you and walk you through that process of not only how much capital you raise, but how you raise that capital and how you get going in that in the first place. Hopefully that was helpful to you. God knows I've been studying that for about 15 years, and I think I understand it pretty darn well, and I'm happy to share with you what I have learned so that you can make some great decisions for yourself. Stephanie, I've got 12:59, but I'm willing to stay on for another few minutes and answer questions and entertain discussion as long as other people are on the call. So let's go for the next one.
Yeah, one more.
Okay.
I want to give my team some personal growth training so they're more productive. What do you think about that?
Wow. Let's talk about that for a second. So for me personally, when I hear the term personal growth, it automatically goes into my mind into spiritual growth, because I see them as kind of a continuum. That the term personal growth is secular and doesn't have any sort of cause or why associated with it oftentimes. And the term spiritual growth to me is the highest level of personal growth. It is the most intimate relationship that you can have with yourself and with other people, is that spiritual relationship. And you can think of that, by the way, in terms of the human spirit, in terms of emotions, in terms of the joy that we have and the sadness that we have. So I really focus on personal growth and spiritual growth. You'll always hear me say those almost in the same sentence. The reason why, by the way, is because it really works for me, and I've never had anybody come back to me and object in any way. So when I talk about personal growth, to me it's always about spiritual growth too. That being said, it's traditional, and companies have done for a long, long time, bringing in motivational and inspirational speakers to talk to people about the power that they have, about the greatness that they have within themselves, and encourage them to reach out for it every single day as we do. And I do that as well. That inspirational speaking, that motivational speaking, just to remind people about what it feels like to be at your best and work at your best, and to love life and to love other people and to get into their joyful state and to step into your power, to get into that zone. As you can tell, I get really excited when I talk about human potential and the opportunity we have to work on ourselves every single day. And that kind of messaging, I think, is really, really appropriate at companies. What I kind of heard from that question, though, was getting people to focus on personal growth. And to me, you can inspire people to work on themselves, but the choice as to whether or not they decide to work on themselves and how they decide to work on themselves and who they work with is a very personal and intimate choice. You can't, say to somebody that, use Paul Hoyt, he's going to be a great coach. I appreciate the recommendation, but you can't make the decision for them. They have to make the decision for themselves as to whether or not they hire Paul Hoyt or somebody else to be their personal growth coach. That's an intimate choice. That's a personal choice. You really got to resonate with your coach. You got to resonate with your spiritual teacher in order for you to make the most progress. That's got to be your choice. So you can hire somebody to be a motivational speaker for your company. You can hire somebody to be an inspirational coach, but you can't really hire somebody to be a personal coach or a spiritual coach for somebody. You can suggest to somebody that they might encourage, that you might encourage that they have a conversation with and consider using somebody. But to me, the person that you use as your personal coach is your decision. You know, that's your intimate personal decision. You have to find somebody that you trust, that you feel comfortable with, that you really feel open with, because they're going to ask you to be open about things that you may not be open with anybody else in the entire world about. You know, your relationship that you have with yourself is the most intimate relationship that you can possibly have. So, you know, I strongly encourage everybody to have somebody on their team to get their personal coach, their spiritual coach, that they can really be open with, that they can be honest to, that they can be transparent with, that they can be you know, intimate with in that spiritual personal growth kind of way. I don't know if I answered that question or not, but I'm happy to speak with companies all day long about the greatness that we each have within. But to me, that decision about who's going to help you with personal and spiritual growth is an intimate decision. Stephanie, next question or comment?
Okay. What can I do to keep my conversations with a very important vendor from escalating into shouting matches?
Well, I guess that's a kind of a segue to personal and spiritual growth. I'm going to let this be the last question of the day because I do have 104, 105 here, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take to answer this one. First of all, you have to ask yourself what you're doing to contribute to that, because it always takes two to tango, right? If you can't get in a shouting match with somebody else unless you're shouting too. They may be shouting, but that doesn't mean that you have to be shouting. So if it escalates into a shouting match, it's got to be a 50-50 responsibility. And I encourage everybody to take 100% responsibility for the things that happen in their life. So the first question is, what am I doing to cause this to escalate to a shouting match? And what can I do differently to prevent this from escalating to a shouting match? I did an office hours presentation, you know, a couple of months ago on structured conversations. And I encourage you to listen to that office hours presentation because we offered many different approaches for having structured conversations with people, which by their design are designed to keep things from going to an escalation point and going into a shouting match. It's taking turns. It's you tell me what you think and then I'll tell you what I think. Is that okay? Or let's go through the facts and the feelings and the needs and the wants. Or let's go through the, you know, here's what I'm uncomfortable with and here's what I'm concerned with, and do it in a way that's systematic and process oriented that has a tendency to keep those conversations from escalating to a shouting match. You know, what I find the most important thing is that people just need to be heard. You know, they need to be, you need to give them their space. You need to give them a chance to express, and you need to be patient during that process. If you can make a deal with them beforehand that says, hey, I really want to hear you and I want to be heard myself. So how about this deal? As I want to give you, 5 or 10 minutes and just let you share what's ever on your mind, and I promise you I'm not going to interrupt you. And when it's over with, I'd like the opportunity to share what's on my mind too without interruption, if that's okay with you. Most people will say okay to that. Some people, I find, by the way, have a really hard time living up to that. And you might be one of those people. You know, it's easy for you to say, I'm going to listen to what you have to say without interruption, but it can be really hard to do. You can bite the side of your cheeks, you can bite your tongue, you can pinch yourself, you can, wiggle your toes, you can do whatever you need to do to keep calm as you possibly can and patient during that process. Take copious notes, do whatever you need to, but give that person the chance to express so that then you have the right to ask them for the chance to express without interruption because it was something that you gave to them first. So I think those are some of the critical aspects around not allowing the conversation to escalate into a shouting match, is to develop a structure that allows you to take turns without interruption. And by the way, just a quick comment, cell phones are the absolute worst way to have a conversation that is an emotionally or a charged conversation. And the reason is that when you're talking, you can't hear somebody else talking. When you are just going on and on, you can't hear somebody else trying to interrupt you very well at all. And they're really terrible platforms for having those structured conversations. My first choice is face-to-face. If you can't do it face-to-face, do it over a landline. If you have to do it over a cell phone, either you're on the cell phone or they're on the cell phone or you're both on the cell phone, then keep in mind that that's really a pretty terrible way to have a potentially emotionally charged conversation because you really can't hear each other. While you're talking, you can't hear, and vice versa, and so it can really facilitate the escalation process in ways that we don't want it to have. Because we want everybody, as much as possible to have a stress-free or certainly a stress-less environment as much as possible. We want everybody to enjoy life as much as possible. We want you to work on yourselves while you are working on the business. We want you to have great relationships as much as possible with everybody that's in your business so that you can build a strong, profitable, scalable, sustainable business over time and enjoy life as much as you possibly can, because that's the bottom line, is to enjoy this incredible, amazing human experience that we've all been blessed to experience as much as possible every single day while you're focusing on getting the job done with people that you know, love, and can trust. And that's my wish for you. So I want to close, as I close all of these office hours presentations, by encouraging you to be the very best that you can possibly be, and wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.